Hi, I'm Joe Farace, and welcome to Joe's Movie Club. Today, we're here to talk about the Warner's archive release of the Blu-ray of King Kong. Let's get started. Before we talk about the Blu-ray, I wanted to give a little perspective. First of all, I love King Kong. It's one of my favorite movies. And you might think, well, it's just a genre film or a monster film, a giant monster film. But here's an interesting fact. When the Criterion Edition first got making their Laserdisc versions of the films, the first movie they made was, not surprisingly, Citizen Kane. But what was the second movie they made? The second movie they released was King Kong. So Criterion never got around to making a new version of King Kong in their recent Blu-rays or even their 4Ks. But it shows how much importance that many people place on the place and history of the 1933 version of King Kong. And I must say, there have been lots of versions of King Kong since then. I'd like to talk about them for just a little bit. But to me, my favorite still remains the 1933 version that was made by Willis O'Brien, who did the famous stop motion of the Big Ape himself. A lot of people are really fascinated by the Jeff Bridges King Kong that Dino De Laurentiis made back in, what was that, the 70s or so? I'm not as enamored with that. I think it's not a very good movie. It's famous mostly, I think, for a couple of things. For me personally, I noticed that a lot of the stuff was shot in Kauai, and I really fell in love with that island, and I was able to take my wife there on our honeymoon, and it's a fabulous, fabulous place. But the other thing was that this was the first film that Jessica Lange appeared in, and she went on to become a really fine actress, although you wouldn't know it from the King Kong. But since then, there have been other attempts at King Kong. Laughably, maybe, maybe not. I was surprised that the Toho production of King Kong versus Godzilla was not as horrible as it might sound, especially with a guy running around in a gorilla suit. Much like Rick Baker was in a gorilla suit in the Jeff Bridges King Kong. But considering there's a rubber Godzilla and a guy in an ape suit that he looks like he bought at the dollar store, it's not actually that bad of a movie. There are other King Kongs, and more recently there was the very famous Peter Jackson version of King Kong. This, as much as I really don't care for the Jeff Bridges King Kong, I like it better than this version. Although this Jackson did come up with some amazing things. One of the things we saw this in the theater, my wife and I. And one of the things that impressed me was the first thing they did was they showed all these people living in these Hoovervilles in the Depression, and they were playing Happy Days Are Here Again. I'm thinking, this is great. When people saw the original King Kong in 1933, they didn't need to be told they were living in the Depression. They were living in the Depression. But modern audiences maybe didn't have that same mindset. So Jackson sets the stage, which he then promptly throws out the window, at least in my opinion, with miscasting all the parts and overwriting the script into this just grandiose, it's a mess. However, there is, the scene of King Kong on the frozen lake in Central Park. That is magical. I mean, if more of those things that happened in the movie were like that, I think that would be a much better movie than it turned out to be. I think it's not really worth saving with re-editing because I think the casting is so bad. Just like Jackson says he loves the original film, like me, but obviously he didn't watch it if he saw how that film was cast and how he cast his version of King Kong. More recently, with some upbeat look on King Kong, was Skull Island. Or as it says here on the disc, Kong Skull Island. This is a terrific movie. I really, really had a great time with this film. They do Kong justice. It's got a great cast. Unlike the people who are miscast, everybody in Jackson's film, everybody here was well cast in this film, especially John C. Reilly as the pilot that crashed in WW2 who was on the island. Amazing performance, and it's a lot of fun movie, and I really like this version. And then there's the second shot at King Kong versus Godzilla. This is the 4K version, and I have to tell you, if you haven't seen this movie, you like giant monster movies, this is absolutely amazing. This is the best 4K movie I've seen yet on my TV. And Kong is treated really well in this movie. He's actually really more of the star of the film than Godzilla, who makes an appearance here and there, and also at the end when they have to have a big battle and punch each other out and all that kind of stuff. I'm not a big fan of the monster punch-outs, but a lot of people are, and at least it looks pretty nice. It's in Hong Kong at night. It's great looking, but the movie is surprisingly good, and I really enjoyed it. Which brings us back to this Warner's Archive release. And there's, like, for me, some good news and some bad news. There are portions of this film that are absolutely breathtaking. And those mostly happen in the last 2/3 of the film. Early in the film, and we're talking about image quality now, the movie is much like Stagecoach. Stagecoach is another film that frame by frame by frame is a beautifully assembled film. And so is King Kong. There is no fat in there. The editing is spot on. This is an amazing film for 1933, and the score, really by Max Steiner, is just pretty much amazing. So, but what didn't I like? What I didn't like early in the film in certain sections is I especially like the boat sections, the parts on the Venture. Really enjoy the kind of tender love scene. It's not really a love scene, but it's the growing affection that Bruce Cabot has with Fay Wray. And Bruce Cabot here, if no one's mentioned this before, I can't imagine why. He just comes off as a young Harrison Ford to me in this film. But there are many sections in the first, before they get to Kong Island or Skull Island, before they get to the island, that are really, really grainy. Now, there are those, I don't mind film grain. There are those people who, wow, they don't like film grain. Well, the film has grain. That's just the way it is. But there are sections in the early third of the film, just scenes that look like you're watching TV on an old black and white set when you're messing with the rabbit ears and it's covered with snow. You know, if you know that look, that TV look, it really detracts from the movie. To me, it's like I'm looking at the snow. I'm not looking at the characters on the screen. And it really is kind of annoying. Which really says, is this transfer ready for 4K? I don't think so. It's going to make the rain look bigger and uglier. So I don't think we want a 4K of this particular transfer. Maybe a new transfer where someone has developed a better system of digital noise reduction that will create a nice looking image without softening it too much. That's the only negative of the film. The parts that follow, and especially everything that happens on Skull Island, look absolutely stunning. And you have to marvel at some of them. You think, wow, they're doing this in 1933. There's no computers even been invented yet. And yet they're doing multiple exposures and matte paintings and integrating all these techniques. Willis O'Brien was a genius, and this film really shows the genius that he has. And if you can put up with those early scenes, you'll like the movie. Now, some years ago, back when Peter Jackson's version came out, they re-released, they had this set of which includes King Kong, Son of Kong, and Mighty Joe Young. Let me see if I can get this one out glaring. And it was not really a steel book. It's in a tin box. It's a tin box book. But the interesting thing about this is this included, I'm willing to bet money that the digital transfer that they used to make this DVD is what was used for the Blu-ray. Maybe not, maybe so. But anyway, the other thing about it is all of the extras that are on the 2-disc set of King Kong are on the new Warner's Archive release. So those are all standard definition. The quality of it varies a lot visually, but the content of the 7-part documentary about King Kong is absolutely fabulous. And if you haven't seen it from this release or one of the early other releases, this was a Target exclusive, which includes Son of Kong. If I can digress a bit, I remember the first time I saw Son of Kong, I thought it was a pretty good little movie, but then when I watched it here, I thought, oh, maybe not. Mighty Joe Young, however, still remains a minor masterpiece, and that's part of this set as well. So the king, he has been beaten up for years and treated poorly, I think. Because it was a pre-code film, things got censored. The movie was chopped up. Even the producers edited the film down from 120 minutes. That was the final edit, not final, next to final edit. They chopped it down to 100 minutes. It's a taut 100 minutes. It's a wonderful film. The noise is bothersome to me. Maybe it won't be to you. Keep that in mind. I think it's certainly worth the price. I mean, it's less than $20 on Amazon. And I'll put a link below if you want to order a copy because, for $20, you'll never get to see King Kong look better. Now, one of the things I'd like to do, I haven't done it yet, but I really would like to do it, is to take another look at the DVD version to see if maybe the less crispness of the standard definition DVD cuts that noise, or maybe it's not there in that transfer. And if that's the case, I'll either do a little post here or maybe do a blog post on Joe's Movie Club on my blog and kind of let you know how it compares. So anyway, I want to say thanks for watching. It's always fun to talk about the movies, and we've got a couple interesting ones coming up. And that is that the Paramount presents dual disc Blu-ray. Well, it's a 4K release of War of the Worlds. War of the Worlds, and then combined with the Blu-ray of When Worlds Collide. What these two movies have in common is that they are both produced by George Powell, and they're both kind of remarkable science fiction films of the 1950s. But there also is a personal connection, much as there is a personal connection with King Kong. I'm really lucky enough to have seen King Kong in the theater. Most people haven't, because the movie was made in 1933. Not many people are around that were old enough to go to the theater at that time. The late Ray Harryhausen most famously said in one of the interviews on the 7-part documentary, his parents took him to see King Kong in the theater, and it changed his life. Well, King Kong didn't change my life, but it continued my fascination with the movies. And if you've read any of my printed blogs, and please do check them out on joefarace.com, you know that I'm passionate about the movies and really love film. And so that's what Joe's Film Club is all about. I hope you join me here when we talk about War of the Worlds and When Worlds Collide and my personal connection with them. Thanks for watching.